So you've all been asking me your questions via my Instagram, and we have had so many questions. It has been so cool to see. So thank you to everyone who asked a question and wanted to find out stuff about maybe my nutrition, my kit, race schedule, recovery, so many different things. So yeah, thanks to everyone who did write in a question, and we're going to try and answer as many as possible and give you as much information as we can. What was the question? What's the question? So I get asked a lot from beginners how kind of to go into Ironman and any tips for doing your first Ironman. So my first tip is to kind of, when you maybe are thinking about signing up for an Ironman or you've already signed up for that first Ironman, is just to assess your schedule, whether that be your work schedule, family commitments, everything that's going on in your life, and then look at when you would be able to fit in your training, because obviously to do an Ironman a lot of training is required. And for a beginner, I'd say that's anywhere from 10 hours upwards. I think you could do an Ironman on 10 hours training per week. So it's looking at your training, looking at your schedule and seeing where you can best fit that in, and is it going to be possible. Hopefully before you've signed up for the Ironman you've looked at that. If you haven't, then yeah, just sit back, probably explain to your family that you're going to be training quite a lot, and hopefully you can get them on board to support you in the best way they can. But try and get as many of your friends involved with your training. So when I was training for my first ever Ironman, I went and did things like spin classes, group runs, and just tried to make what can be quite a lonely training process a bit more exciting, a bit more interesting, and hopefully a bit more fun. And you can continue to actually enjoy your training and have fun while you do it. And even at my level, I'm still trying to keep it fun and have as much interesting training as possible. Definitely used to be dairy milk. Love Lindt chocolate, like the little balls, the white chocolate ones are the best ones. Snickers bars, Mars bars, so different. I mean, I've just named chocolate bars so far, so I've done really well. I think probably I would go with the white chocolate Lindt balls. I'll just eat them all day long, probably until I feel sick. Well, properly learned to swim was probably around the age of 8, but from as young as I can remember, I think I probably was about 2. I was on holiday in somewhere at Mallorca with my family, and we were on the beach, and my mum and dad tell the story of how they kind of like turned their back, and I was just little Lucy charging at the sea wanting to go swimming. So I've always had a love for the water, and then probably about 2 years later we went on another holiday, and I was terrifying all the hotel guests because I had armbands on, probably just so my parents could maybe take their eye off me for a second, because I was a little tearabout and little terrible 4-year-old. But I would jump in the deep end and then swim down to the shallow end and just keep swimming. But actually properly swimming at a club, I was 8 years old, and then by 9 years old I was very serious. I knew that I wanted to be an elite swimmer and aspired to be in the Olympics. So I do the standard carb loading before the race, just eating quite bland and getting the carbs on board. And then race morning, I normally have just basic porridge, as much as I can tolerate. If I'm pushing the boat out, then I'll have some peanut butter on just white bread toast, and maybe a cup of tea. And then all morning I'm just drinking basic electrolyte drink, to get the electrolytes on board, make sure I'm pre-hydrated before the starter's gun goes, because you want to make sure you're starting in a hydrated state. Normally down in transition in the morning I'll have my first bit of caffeine, normally from something simple like a can of Red Bull. I just use that in the morning whilst I'm setting up my transition, make sure that I'm putting everything in my bike nutrition wise, inner tubes, the right bottles on, filling up my rehydration system. It's quite extensive, the amount of nutrition anyone doing an Ironman will know that goes on your bike. So yeah, just getting my head in the game before the race. Obviously the whole swim, nothing because you're in the water, so you're basically dehydrating in the swim. So as soon as I get on the bike, I'm making sure that I'm drinking to replace what's been lost in the swim. Normally I have between 60 to 80 grams of carbs per hour, so I can carry all of my carbs on my bike, which makes my life a lot easier. So my front bottle has it in, I have 2 rear bottles, and I have my 1.5 litres in my rear hydration system. So all of my carbs are there, and then I just use the water from the aid stations and add electrolyte tablets. So that is pretty much all I have on the bike. Any dark spots, I'll tend to use caffeine. Basically, if I feel a lull coming or I'm just having a really tough time, a bit of caffeine, and that kind of picks me up again. So that's my basic on the bike. Sometimes I have some solids as well, so I've used Snickers bars in the past. Normally would have a little tiny bit every half an hour, but I've moved away from solid now and having mostly liquid based calories and energy. And then onto the run. In quite a lot of my races that are the regional champs or world champs, I'm quite lucky because I have pro aid stations. So in Kona, for example, I was able to use pro aid stations, which was 6 of them out on the course. I had an electrolyte mix and then a Red Bull water mix for my caffeine, and basically had that on every 5k near enough. That was where the aid stations were. Obviously, if you're not fortunate enough to have pro aid stations, which a lot of you are age groupers, so you won't have that luxury, on the normal aid stations, I used to just use the water, carry my own gels, and have those tucked in my suit or in a little belt. And again, that'd be like every 5k I would probably top up with a gel and just use the on-course nutrition, so water, electrolyte mix, and towards the end, pretty much anything I can get. So that will be the Red Bull, the water, the electrolyte, the gels, the bananas, anything that's going to get me to the finish. So I have quite a nice structured plan. Last 10k of the run, anything goes. Well, it's kind of a good time to answer that question because I'm not doing much training at the moment. Probably just going out with friends. I mean, I live on the edge of London, so I like to go into town, and there's so many different things to do in London that you can pretty much never get bored. There's always something new to discover. So that's definitely one thing. Up until now, I never had my own dog, but definitely walking the dogs in the amazing forest that I live near and just going out for coffee. There's nothing really super extravagant that I like doing, but yeah, just being like a normal social human, I guess, which I don't often get to be like when I'm training so hard. Custard creams or bourbons? Depends on the day of the week, really. I'm gonna go custard creams, but I have a really big sweet tooth, so I'll eat any biscuits, but custard creams is today's choice. I guess obviously I've been in sport a long time, so I can handle nerves quite well. There were times in my swimming career where I just could not handle nerves at all. Like I'd be behind the block and like be sicking in my hand because I was so nervous. So I've come a long way since then, but I think obviously the preparation plays a huge part, and I'm someone who quite often just never believes I've done enough. I should start to believe I've done enough now because the results kind of would speak for themselves to say that I always have done enough. But yeah, it's just looking back over my training. I quite often like to jot down my key workouts that I did and what went well, just to install a final bit of confidence. And then a lot of visualization through the race, each stage, how I'm going to react, and different game plans on depending on what other girls are going to do in the race. So a lot of that comes into it. Then just a lot of time listening to good music, trying to just stay relaxed in my own head, and yeah, trying to kind of block out little bits, but you don't want to block it out completely because on the start line you want to eventually feel a bit more relaxed, which can be pretty hard when you're waiting for the starter's gun to go. So yeah, it's definitely difficult, and there's always nerves. Everyone gets nervous, so it's just trying to stay calm and manage the nerves, but accept that it is normal to feel nervous. Oh, first race of 2020. Undecided. And that's not a lie either. pretty much undecided. I think it will be a toss-up between Ironman South Africa again, going for the three-peat, trying to win for the third time, or it will be something later in the year. So I probably won't race any earlier than that, but yeah, very undecided at the moment. A lot is up in the air with the race calendar, so you guys will be the first to know. So if I wasn't a triathlete, I don't think I couldn't be in sport. So I probably would go back to personal training. Absolutely love that job, and I do enjoy coaching as well. But if I was staying in the sporting world, I would either be a fell runner or cross-country runner. I'm not particularly good at it, but I just love it. Or I would try and be a surfer again, probably terrible at it, but love it. So yeah, I'd stay within the sporting bubble. Yeah, I love sport too much to leave sport. So it's very normal to experience tough times in a race, particularly in an Ironman, because it's such a long race. So I always have little dark spots, and what I normally do leading into an Ironman is write down my 5 key sessions where I either absolutely nailed it or I was really struggling, but I managed to pull myself through and get the session done. And then normally in a race, that is exactly the moment that when I'm in a dark spot, I remember I managed to pull myself out of that moment in training for this exact moment in the race. But also it is just remembering all that hard work that you've done, and at that moment in the race, that should be the time when all of your training comes in, whether that be physical or mental training, and you're able to pull yourself out and remember why you're doing it, and hopefully just keep smiling your way through and pushing, because even the best in the sport are going to have dark times in a race, and hopefully you can take comfort from that as well. I was a swimmer first, but I wouldn't really call that a job, even though I was swimming so much it didn't allow me to work, but I was still under 21. Once I decided I didn't want to swim anymore, my first job was in marketing, and I worked at a local zoo doing a lot of the social media and online marketing, and occasionally got to do really cool stuff with the animals. And then once I was enjoying working there, but I wanted to set up my own business. So whilst I was working at the zoo, I trained to be a personal trainer. And then Reese and I set up our own business called Pulse Fitness Personal Training. And we had our own personal training business. And then triathlon escalated quite quickly, and we were personal training whilst doing triathlon. Up until I turned pro, I was still personal training, because you don't make enough money as a pro, particularly as a beginner pro, to not have another job. So I was personal training alongside all of my own training and racing. And then it wasn't until 2017 that I actually went full-time pro and took a gamble and didn't work anymore. My only income was from triathlon. Okay, so I'm going to explain the question for our international fans. So there is scones or scones, kind of like a little muffiny sweet cake thing. We do cream teas in the UK, it's quite traditional. So you put clotted cream and jam on your scone, but in what order? You have to do it jam, then cream. That's the Cornish way. So bucket list Ironman race, definitely Ironman Wales. One day I will do it. At the moment it just doesn't fit with Kona, it's too close to Kona, but it's definitely one I've always wanted to do, so I will be in Tenby one day. Oh, that's a really good question, but a difficult question as well. And I think I've learnt it from my own experiences, is that I, as a kid, probably took everything too seriously. So the enjoyment side of things I almost cut out, because I was so serious about wanting to make an Olympic Games in swimming. And it wasn't until when I was 19 and I left the sport of swimming that I kind of ventured into triathlon for the sheer purpose of doing sport for fun. to which it escalated that I'm too competitive to just do it for fun, and I always want to compete at the top level, but fun became very high on the priority list, which maybe it hadn't done before. And I've had way more success in sport by doing it with fun as a high priority. So I think, yeah, you need to take it seriously if you want to do sport at a high level, but if there's no element of fun, then you just can't have a long and successful career, in my opinion. So that's probably one of the most important lessons that I learned, is that don't take it too seriously. So when I finish an Ironman, the first thing I want to eat is normally pizza. I normally order like a massive pizza and then eat like one slice and then just feel so sick that I can't eat it. After Kona this year, on the way home, we went to Domino's Pizza, ordered 3 large pizzas. We had like a veggie one, a pepperoni one and a margarita. The veggie one was so good, but I had 2 slices and then was like, I feel so ill. But then the winner was that the next night was the after party, so when we got in quite late, just ate all the pizza then. So yeah, it's definitely pizza, but I normally can't eat much of it, so it has to wait another day until I eat all the food. Eyelash and eyebrow secrets. Well, I use number 7 waterproof mascara for everyday life, every Ironman I've done. So not really a big secret there. Eyebrows, bit more goes into the eyebrows. So I use, if you go onto Instagram and go to Poppy Cosmetics, she basically does kind of like microblading of the eyebrows. So they are almost permanent, like semi-permanent, but they just don't come off, so I don't have to do anything with them anymore. Like yearly I might go and get them topped up, but they're pretty much, actually considering the amount that I put them through with swim, bike, run, sun cream, yeah, sweating, they don't come off. So yeah, that is a bit more top secret, but eyelash is very basic. So my biggest sporting idol growing up was definitely Michael Phelps. Obviously I was a swimmer and he's definitely the best swimmer that has ever existed so far. So yeah, for me he was just a huge inspiration, setting the bar and the standard so high and winning more Olympic swimming medals than any other swimmer has. So yeah, pretty plain and simple, he was super inspiration and someone who I always aspired to be like. So in Kona, a lot of people picked up that I was like tapping along on my handlebars on the bike, and I did have like a song stuck in my head from very early on. I remember going through an aid station, one of probably like the second one out on the bike course, and they were playing music really loud, and it was Liam Payne, Strip That Down, and yeah, it just was stuck in my head for like 2 or 3 lines of the song, stuck in my head for the entire race. And yeah, I was pretty much just singing along to it, tapping along, having a great time. So yeah, I wouldn't mind a bit more variety next time though. So if every aid station could play a different song and we can like mix it up, have a little remix going along, that'd be great. I'd probably, hopefully I've have enough success in my career to go and talk to people, do inspirational talks, try and inspire people to kind of, they don't have to necessarily do sport, but just inspire them to venture out and actually explore maybe new things that they haven't done before and really dive into that. I'd probably get a few more dogs. I am enjoying being a dog mum, so I'd probably have like a whole barn of dogs. But I think I wouldn't leave sport really. I'd still want to keep fit. I enjoy being fit and active and healthy. Maybe going into schools and talking to children about the positive benefits of sport, and yeah, just trying to inspire the next generation and continue to maybe have a bit of a legacy in sport even when I'm not racing anymore. Did you hear that, Lola? She's like, what now? When is Lola getting another brother or sister? Well, at the moment, Lola is a lot of work. So yeah, maybe after Kona next year, who knows, if I do well, we might get another dog. I know eventually we will have a family of dogs, and Lola will be setting the example, so we need to put a lot of work into her to make sure that she's well behaved and can teach them all good habits. She's had her first puppy training this week from puppy coach Joe, and I'm probably doing everything wrong right now letting her do that, so sorry Joe. Once Lola's a good girl, we may think about getting another dog for her to have as a sibling. Okay, so thanks for tuning in. Thank you for all of your questions, it's really appreciated. If you like this video, then comment and let us know if we may revisit this again in the future, if it's really popular, and answer more of your questions, because I know there is absolutely loads that we didn't answer. Also, if you've got any ideas or things you would like us to cover throughout my training, racing, or just normal life, then yeah, let us know in the comments below, and yeah, stay tuned for more super cool videos.